Welcome back to the 9th King Films Sports basketball predictions video for the weekend. Let's get right into it with the Week 8 recap. We had a successful week on the locks going 3-1-2 and another successful over 500 week on the games. That brings us to astounding records on the season, and we hope to keep that up this week. Moving into my 8 locks, let's start with a big one out of the Big 12. We've got Texas and Texas Tech. Texas has huge wins over Kansas twice, UNC, Oklahoma State, Indiana, and WVU. They've got Andrew Jones, and this is a really hot team right now, so I'm giving them the cover of +3. I really can't believe that Texas Tech is even favored because while they do have good wins over Oklahoma twice, Texas, and LSU, they lost to WVU, then had COVID, and then lost 2 more. They do have Mac McClung, but I don't think it's going to be enough, even at home, to get it done against this Texas team. Next up, we've got Florida State against North Carolina. Florida State is only favored by 1, so I'm giving them the cover here. They're a hot team right now with wins over Florida, Indiana, Virginia, Clemson, and Louisville. They're one of the hottest teams. And whereas UNC has wins over Louisville, Duke, and Syracuse, and that win over Louisville came by about 50 last weekend, so they're a bit hot right now, but they are coming off a loss to Marquette. They've got Brooks and Love, but I think Florida State's going to take this one with ease and cover that 1-point spread. Next up in the Big Ten, we've got Michigan and Indiana. Michigan is really hot right now. They've got Liverts and Dickinson averaging 30 a game combined. We've got wins over Ohio State, Iowa, Wisconsin twice, Purdue, and Rutgers. Indiana does tend to play good Big Ten competition good at home, and they have wins over Iowa twice and Maryland, and Jackson Davis is good, but they're coming off 2 straight L's. That could either motivate them or they could get discouraged, like we've seen happen with teams like Northwestern and Minnesota in the Big Ten, and just not really try that hard against the hard Michigan team. Next up, we've got Illinois and Wisconsin. Illinois +2, I'm taking them to cover the spread and win the game. Illinois has wins over Iowa, Purdue, Wisconsin, and Indiana twice. Ayo Dosunmu probably isn't going to play based on this spread, but they do have Kofi Cockburn, who's playing really well for them right now. Wisconsin has wins over Louisville, Indiana, Loyola Chicago, Maryland, and Rutgers. Trice, Potter, and Davidson are great players for them, but I think this Wisconsin team is really overrated, and they've lost 3 of 4, so they're in a bit of a rut right now. At least this game's at home for them, but I think they'll lose, and thus Illinois will cover. Next up, we've got LSU against Arkansas. Arkansas is playing really hot right now. They've got wins over Florida, Alabama, and Missouri during their latest win streak, whereas LSU has wins over Arkansas the first time and Tennessee, but they're coming off a loss to University of Georgia. I think at home, Arkansas's got to be the favorite here, and I think they'll cover that 4-point spread. Next up, we've got Alabama and Mississippi State. This is not a lock, just a game prediction that I really think Alabama will win, but I don't know about them covering the spread. Alabama's wins over Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas, and LSU twice, but they are coming off a loss to Arkansas in their latest game. And Mississippi State has good wins over Florida and Missouri at home, and they tend to play good SEC competition close at home. So that's why I don't think Alabama will cover here, but this is definitely a notable game. Then on Sunday, we've got number 9 Iowa against number 4 Ohio State, and this is a blockbuster out of the Big Ten. Despite both teams coming off losses, Ohio State's got Liddell and Washington, and they've got good wins over Illinois, UCLA, Rutgers twice, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Indiana. Of course, they have 2 straight L's to both Michigan teams, and Iowa is coming off an L to Michigan as well. So that just proves how hot Michigan is right now. Garza and Wieskamp are good for Iowa, and they've got a great offense, wins over Rutgers twice, Minnesota, UNC, Purdue, and Wisconsin. The winner of this could really boost up their seed and probably go over the other if it does happen to be Iowa, just because they'll have that head-to-head victory for seeding concerns. On to some other notable Saturday games. We've got Baylor and Kansas, and I'm going to predict Kansas here to win. They've got wins over Texas Tech twice, West Virginia, Creighton, TCU twice, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma. They've got Agbaji, Wilson, and Brown. and they're still hot despite their close loss to Texas this week. And I really think that they will beat a Baylor team that was not very hot in their opener off their COVID pause, as they played a horrible ISU team close. They've got wins over Texas Tech, Kansas, Illinois, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. Maceo Teague and Jared Butler, as well as Davion Mitchell, provide enough scoring to keep the team up even when most of the team is down. But I still am going to have Kansas at home here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor edged them out either. Should be a very close game. Next up, we've got St. Mary's against BYU in the WCC. BYU has wins over Utah State, San Diego State, St. Mary's the first time on the road, and St. John's. So they're a pretty good, solid tournament team, but St. Mary's could really use this win. They really only have a win over Colorado State in the field right now, but they can give a fight to anyone, especially BYU, as we saw the first time in a very close game that they, quite frankly, just choked. They have 2 straight wins off of a COVID pause, and I think that they really need this to get back in tournament considerations. Even though those quality wins aren't there, they could maybe weasel their way in with a couple wins to end the season and then a good performance in the conference tournament. That being said, I am taking BYU to win this game because I think they're the better team. Next up, we've got Oklahoma State against Oklahoma. Oklahoma State has wins over Kansas, Texas Tech twice, and Arkansas. They've got Cunningham and Likely, and they're a very hot team right now, but I'm still going to take Oklahoma to win, who has good wins over Texas, Kansas, WVU twice, and Alabama. Reeves and Manick are obviously the headliners for this team, but they are coming off a loss to Kansas State, and unlike some teams, I think that Oklahoma is really going to bounce back from this. They're a very veteran team, so I think they're going to beat the youngsters at Oklahoma State. Next up, we've got Creighton and Xavier. Creighton has wins over UConn twice, Xavier the first time, and Villanova. They've got Mahoney, and they're pretty hot team right now, with that win over Villanova being in this win streak. Xavier has wins over Oklahoma and St. John's. They've got Fremantle and Scruggs, who are good for 30 a game, but 3 out of 4 losses off a lengthy COVID pause for Xavier, and I'm not sure that they will make the field with the way things are currently going. They badly need a win, but I think Creighton's going to get this one from them. Next up, we've got one out of the ACC. We've got Syracuse and Georgia Tech, and this is really a battle for making the tournament. Georgia Tech is hot right now with wins over Florida State, Virginia Tech, UNC, and Clemson, so they're really taking advantage of that ACC schedule, and they have 3 straight wins right now. Syracuse, meanwhile, has a win over Virginia Tech, and that's about all in their resume, and they are coming off a loss to Duke the other night, in which it knocked them out of the tournament. So both teams need this game, but I think Georgia Tech at home is going to take it. Next up, we've got Louisville and Duke. Duke has Hurt and Stewart now that Johnson opted out, but they have won 4 straight wins over Syracuse and Virginia, both coming on this win streak, and that's pretty much the games that make up their tournament resume. Could get a nice one here off a struggling Louisville team that has been 1-1 since their COVID pause, with of course that big loss to North Carolina that I mentioned earlier. They have wins over Virginia Tech and Western Kentucky, so not really much on their resume either. This would be a quality win for both teams, but I think Duke will just take it at home, as they're the hotter team right now. Next up, we've got one out west, UCLA and Colorado. Colorado's wins over Oregon, Stanford, and USC twice, the latter of which came on Thursday. They've got McKinley Wright and Evan Batty, which are great players for this team, and they're sitting solidly in the tournament, and this is a chance for another great win against UCLA. UCLA has wins over Colorado the first time and Arizona twice. They've got Tiger Campbell, Johnny Juzang, Jaime Jaquez, and Cody Riley, but they're not actually that good of a team. Their record is much better than it should be, as they've won a lot of close games in conference. That being said, I think the altitude, even though UCLA just had a game over Utah, I think the altitude will get to them. Colorado now has fans in the building, and I think Colorado will continue their momentum and win. It is worth noting that Colorado is way better against the top 5 Pac-12 teams than the bottom 5. So they should really be worried in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament, but if they can get past that, they probably have a good chance at winning the whole thing. Next up, we've got Boise State against San Diego State, and this is one of those classic Mountain West doubleheaders. SDSU won the first one via overtime, and they've got Matt Mitchell and Jordan Shackle. Wins over UCLA, Colorado State, Boise State, which I already mentioned, and St. Mary's. Of course, my justification for San Diego State winning this game is that we saw the same thing happen against San Diego State against a contender earlier. They lost by 3 to Colorado State in the first game, so I'll equate that to the overtime win here, and then they went on to blow them out. Whether that was because they thought they should have won the first game, which they should have, and then got mad, I don't know, but I still think that they will take this second one at home since the momentum is building. Boise State, meanwhile, has wins over BYU, Utah State twice, and Colorado State. This is solidly a matchup of tournament teams and will determine seeding based on the results of this second game. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your own predictions below.